Okay, I've been working on the wiring for changing out the switches in my in a Miata, and as I was playing with it, the wiring's all fine, it works, but the window guide popped out. So the window was acting all squirrely. It was all uneven and stuff like that, and it was getting caught up and different things. And I looked in there and found that this is completely missing, which is common. There's supposed to be a little bushing that goes around this, and it looks a little bit like this, but sort of rounder and sticks out higher. But so catching up with this in the middle of the project, but basically what I did was it's very simple to get the glass out. You basically take off your handles and you take out, so the handles would be right here with this screw and this screw down here, and then there's one screw behind here, and you have to kind of lock the door to get to it, but then it's right there. And then you can pull this cup out just by pulling this out a little bit and then wiggling it loose. So that's that part off. And then you've got several little clips, plastic clips that go into your door card here and all along the bottom. Here's one that stayed in the door, unfortunately. But the way to pop those out is to simply get, you know, a tool like this, trim tool. If you don't have this, you can use a fork. You can technically use a screwdriver, but it's not a good idea. Don't use your hands. You will break these off. They're kind of annoying to replace, and your door card will flap around if you can't replace them. So anyway, they're down here all along, and then there's a couple in the middle. This one is hard to reach, so that one popped out with my door cards. My door cards are in pretty sad shape, actually. If you look at it, they've taken some moisture damage and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, I usually have to end up gluing these back in every single time to try to get them to stay, but they never quite stay because it's just lame cardboard. And it's 24-year-old cardboard at this point. So anyway, this is what it's supposed to look like in the thing. It basically slips in and slides over, but this cardboard gets to the point where it can no longer do it. Then the second thing you want to do is pop off this trim piece. This just makes it easy to remove the glass. You could probably do it without popping this off, but it takes like 2 seconds to pop this off. Now, the way you do that is there is a small little tab right there, and a similar one on the other side of the door. So pop those out first, and then working from this side of the door, you'll lift up the rubber until you can see the inside of this yellow one, and you'll press a little flathead screwdriver right there, and this will allow you to release this little tab, and it'll pull up slightly. Work your way down. Just same thing. Insert the little flathead, pop it in. It'll pull up a little bit more, and so on until you get to the end, and then it comes right off. And they go into these little slots right here. If one of them stays in the door, it's no big deal. Just do the same thing, pop it off, stick it back on here, because reinsertion is much easier if the tabs are on the thing as opposed to trying to get this thing to fit into the tab. Just put the tab on out here and you can pop it back on. Anyway, once you've done it once or twice, maybe the first time it might take you 10 minutes, but after that it becomes like a 30-second job to pop this off. Now, the last time I had the door cards off, I was installing some new rubber around the door trim, which is basically this big thing that goes all the way up and then all the way down and around, and it's still one piece. This is it, and it goes all the way up. So anyway, I was replacing that, and the easiest way to do that is to get the door card off and just reach inside and do it. You don't have to take the glass out, but you do need to pull on this. You cannot just work it down. Even with some lubrication, it just was not going in there. So in this guide rail, so it's easier just to push that down. But anyway, while I was in there, I saw that this bushing was missing. So in preparation for that day, I went to my local Lowe's and picked up a couple of these just nylon spacers. You can buy these, the OEM piece, for about 30 bucks, I think, something like that. But, you know, this is $2. So the whole thing is probably $2. So I went ahead and tried that. I got a spacer, these type of spacers, a little bit smaller spacer. I think these are the ones you really want. And then ones that look like this. So again, this is what those are. You can see what those are. Basically 1 by 3/8 by 3/8, and then this one is 1/2 by 2.57 by 1/2. So anyway, I broke this loose very carefully with the Torx 30, and we're going to put this on. Now, one modification that you have to do is these things need to be beveled out. So that's pretty easy. If you have like a little Dremel or a drill or something, you can bevel this out so that you can countersink this, because this should be flush against this head. That's the way it came normally with the regular bushing. You pay the 30 bucks, you get that done for you. I'll just do this real quick and stick this in a vise and bevel it out. All right, so I've got this. It's not perfectly flush, but I reamed this out just a little bit. The top with about a 1/2 inch bit, and the bottom with a 1/4 inch, and it ended up being the small one. I thought it was going to be this larger one, but it wasn't. So the small one is what fits. And so what this is it's right up against that metal part, which is the metal part stops right on here, this washer. So this is going to go on here, this goes on the back side, the nylon in between, and then you torque it down very lightly, not very much at all. And then this should work. Now, my understanding is this isn't even supposed to spin, so don't worry about that. This just glides up and down. That the OEM one doesn't spin either. So I'm going to try it. Now, the next part is, it's a good idea to clean out this guide. So to take off this guide in the back, you don't need to do the front, because it's just got this rubber thing, and it's going to be what it's going to be in terms of friction. To take this one off, you've got one bolt at the top and one bolt underneath the door down here. And so the I hit it with a bit of liquid wrench, PV blaster, you know, whatever you got, because, you know, there's a lot of moisture that gets to these components, especially the one at the bottom of the door. I didn't want anything breaking off. So I hit that while I was working on this other stuff. It just soaked in. So hopefully we'll be able to just take that out. And I have some special stuff. This is what they use. This is the real silicone grease that actually Mazda used originally, Shin-Itsu. This is a Honda. Honda is the one that sells it, and this is about 15 bucks. But this is plenty for life. You really just don't need that much. So I went ahead and got this just because it was easy to get, and it was fast. So I went ahead and just got that previously, and it's just been sitting here waiting for this day. All right, good news. False alarm. This is the right size. It looked weird because it was a little tight at the end, and there was a slight amount of grease which blended in. It was the same color as this. I didn't see, so then that had an effect and made it look smaller. And then I made this a little bit more flush, so you can see that had to be completely flush. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. See that? Fits in there perfectly now. And with that flush, actually, this spacer fits a little bit better too, even. So that's good. So now I'm going to try to get some, I wiped it out. What I did was I ran a screwdriver that's approximately the size of this rail, you know, in it, and that basically scraped out a fair amount of grease. And then I just wrapped the driver in this microfiber towel and jammed it in there and wiped it out again. I don't think, I mean, you could spray it down with like brake clean and whatnot, but I don't think that's really going to be terribly effective with this particular kind of grease. It's a silicone grease, and I don't think it's going to work. It's not made for that. It's made for petroleum products. So I think you're best off just trying to wipe it down as best you can and clean it out. You might be able to use some alcohol-based product like some window cleaner, and that might help clean it out the rest of the way. But I think it's in good shape right now. All right, it doesn't look like it, but all greased up. You can kind of see in there the grease, and all I did, there was no good way to I just went with this way of doing it. I hadn't really seen how to do this, but I just put a dollop like this every couple inches, just a little dime size dollop down along it, and then as I stuck this in, just kind of rotated it like this, and it kind of worked its way up into the rest of the track. So it should be. This seems pretty smooth. So get it worked in like that, and should be good to put it back in. Okay, this is torqued down, and by torque I mean a few inch-pounds. I basically to the equivalent of hand tight, and then maybe like a quarter turn. That is it. I'd rather this fall out than tighten this too much. So it should be good. These are in there. Get these little things lined up, and then we should be able to drop the glass back in. So when going to put the glass back in, one thing you got to do is take out these little stops. Here's one that hasn't been removed yet. And I was able to take the I forgot about this because since this was gone, this was flapping all over the place, and it's just came right out. I just pulled it right out, and there's no problem working around these stops. But these need to be out of the way so that you can put it back in. I think this is easier to take off and to realign than it is to do it on the glass in the car. And the way to realign this stuff is to look at where the bolt imprint is. You can see that round imprint, and just line it up just like that. Left to right is going to be easy because of those little tabs. It's going to hold it in place exactly the angle it needs to be at. But you're just concerned about up and down, that it matches what it did before. So your window will work just like it did before. You can also see on the inside of the door little marks in all the dirt where the guides were. So that should do it.